Hello everybody and welcome to the Slasher Vidcast. I'm your host Stephen, and as you can see, it's just me today. I've got no co-hosts or guests to bounce off of. So what I decided to do for a little change of pace is a ranking video, and I'm going to rank the Friday the 13th franchise, my favourite of the horror franchises. But I'm only going to stick to the Paramount era of films, and I want to do that because I feel like and this isn't a knock on the New Line ones because I do enjoy many of them. The New Line ones are kind of off on their own island. It's almost like Jason kind of swam from Crystal Lake to the other side, and then that's all they got. So I'm going to do those on their own. I know the reboot, remake, reimagining, rebox office ending, whatever you want to call it, is a co-produced Paramount and New Line, but I'll do that in the New Line ranking when I get to that eventually. And also the Never Hike Alone movie and the Never Hike in the Snow film. Well, it's kind of like a series film. I'm going to do those when I do an overall ranking of the entire franchise. So I'll do the Paramount, the New Line, and Womp Stomp Films Never Hike series, which I'm just going to say right now as a little spoiler, are some of the best in this entire franchise. So today I'm going to do just the Paramount era ones from Crystal Lake to Manhattan. I'm going to give you little thoughts on what I like, what I don't like. Maybe I'll probably talk a little bit about how Jason looks and the Jason actor, and I'll probably pick best kill. I don't think I'll always do a worst kill, but if I can think of some that I thought like that's kill sucked, I might talk about that. So let's go right into it. So first up is number 8, and no surprise, it's Jason Takes Manhattan, the 8th installment of the Friday the 13th franchise. So number 8 is number 8. So this film is a film I've kind of got a little bit of a soft spot for. I do like all these films to some degree. I know which ones suck and which ones don't, but I can get some enjoyment out of them. The problem with Jason Takes Manhattan, for me, isn't the Jason Takes Manhattan aspect. A lot of people have an issue that kind of is in New York for 5 minutes or whatever. Well, probably longer, but a lot of it was Vancouver, Canada, I believe. But for me, the issue is the pacing of the film, and I feel like if you were going to do Jason on a boat, just have a film with Jason on a boat. I think that would have been actually more entertaining than going to a city. I feel like when you take the horror icon into that environment of New York City, you kind of... I know the scariness is gone at this point, but you kind of take it into absurdity. They're obviously not absurd levels of Jason in space, which we'll get to in the New Line ranking. But it just feels absurd to me. Don't get me wrong, the New York City scene where he kicks the jukebox and there's like the punk rockers, that is a great scene. It's brilliant, and I believe Kane Hodder said it was his favourite scene as Jason that he's ever done. I believe that. Don't take it up with Kane. Yeah, ask Kane about it. But no, it's got its problems as well with like the score. The score is just flat. I believe it's Fred Mollin took over completely in this one, and whereas in 7 they'd used some Manfredini themes and Fred Mollin kind of mixed his in. This one is just pure Fred Mollin. It just doesn't work. I do quite like the Jason, whatever it is at the start, the Paramount logo. That's quite cool entry. I actually, for all the times I've seen this film, I don't know if the Kiki Mama Mat is in it. I'm assuming it is. I'd have to double check that. So that straight away changes the feel of this movie, and when it opens with that, that song, I can't remember what it's called, like the Darkest Side of New York or something. That kind of makes you realise you're kind of in a very, very different movie here. But there's some good moments and some good kills. Again, they're quite bloodless, the kills, but I believe the best kill has to be, the rooftop boxing match fight with Julius, is it? Or Julian? I can't. See, I've seen this movie that many times. I'm just terrible with names. That's a great kill. That's one of the best of the series, in my opinion, which maybe that'll be a future video ranking Friday the 13th kills or something. No, very, very cool death. Kane Hodder is great in this. He's great in everyone he's in. It's just a shame he was kind of in the ones that weren't the best level Friday the 13th. I'm not even just talking on personal taste. I'm just talking about like general opinion. But yeah, he's great in it. I actually think he looks good in this. I know some people don't quite like the slime aspect. Don't bother me. The mask, it looks quite a bit like this one actually. It's nice. It's a pure new mask. Again, why has it got the axe cut though? And it's not the same mask. They could have just removed the axe cut, but again, it had become part of the look at that point, so they'd just get it anywhere they could. So yeah, negatives again. I've talked about the score, but like. Rennie is not a great final girl. Her boyfriend Scott, nothing to him at all. And the way they kill Jason at the end of this is just pitiful. It's terrible. The toxic ooze. He literally looks like a muppet when he gets the ooze thrown in his face as well, and then he reverts back to being a little boy. I kind of get what the director was going for when he was like wanting to kind of restore some purity to the franchise. It's almost like coming full circle, a bit like Halloween 4 at the end when Danielle Harris' character Jamie Lloyd stabs the mother. That's kind of brings the full circle element to the Halloween franchise, even though there were sequels after. But I kind of get what it was going for, but it just didn't quite work. And I think there were some decent ideas in here, and I think on paper it might have worked. I mean, for me, why not just do Jason in suburbia and just have him go to like go to Michael Myers territory basically, and go to houses and stuff, and something a little bit different. I mean, he did in Freddy vs. Jason obviously at the beginning, but yeah, there's just too many issues with this one, and it kind of stinks. So that's number 8. And in number 7 is Friday the 13th Part 7, The New Blood. Which, why is it called The New Blood? What does that even mean? Terrible movie. Much like Jason Takes Manhattan, it's just not a good film. It's got some great moments in it. Kane Hodder as Jason, right off the bat is brilliant. The look of Jason in this film is probably top 3. It looks phenomenal. You've got all the damage on the suit. There's all the holes and the bones. The mask is obviously like it's basically falling off. But the straps have kind of like merge of his head, like sort of thing. So that Jason looks great. I think he looks great on mask. Some people don't. I think he does. There's just some issues with like the timeline, and the timelines in this series are a mess anyway. But like, you see, I can't remember her name now. The little girl. So I'll have to check it out. What the fuck is she called? Tina, right? Tina, that's it. Tina. So you see Tina, and she resurrects Jason, and it's like, I can't remember if they actually established the timeline, but it's clearly years after Jason lives. And it's like, okay, so Jason was down there that long. What they could have done was, at the end of Jason Lives, you could have just had this happen at the other side of the lake, or, as someone has suggested before, you could have one of the little girls at the camp be Tina. Would have made a lot more sense. Anyway, she's trying to resurrect her dad, who she accidentally kills because she's got telekinetic powers. Now, I don't necessarily mind the supernatural, whatever you want to call them, elements to the Friday the 13th films as they get later on, because I know they were competing with Nightmare on Elm Street and they wanted to introduce some new elements that they thought would help in box office. By the time you get to a Part 7, things are getting ridiculous anyway, so you kind of just got to go along with it. But the absolute worst thing about this film, well, 2 worst things actually. The first one is the MPAA it's absolutely cut to shreds. I'm not one of those who needs excessive gore, but I need to see something like, so when Terry Crews gets killed, I think not Terry Crews, that's the guy from Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Bad News Crews, Dr. Crews gets killed. You don't see anything. It's like the saw goes in and then he goes and he's dead, and it's just like, really, that's it? Obviously, and this is the best kill, it helped the sleeping bag one, because I've seen the sleeping bag kill when he throws it into the tree like 7 or 8 times or something. Doesn't quite have the same effectiveness, but the one hit, smash dead, that is brilliant. And probably maybe the best kill of the entire franchise. I won't spoil it here. Maybe I'll have to weigh it up. That is a great kill. That is absolutely phenomenal. But the second worst thing, and this is the worst thing in my opinion, the characters in this film are all awful. I don't like any of them. They're just not likable, or anyone that has any sort of the odd one has personality, but not enough to get invested in any of them. You had like the Lar Park Lincoln and the other guy. I'm terrible with names. I really should have researched this before I did it. The 2 leads have no chemistry whatsoever. No chemistry. And God rest his soul, John Carl Buechler, but I think he was a great makeup effects guy, and I think he could get a good shot. Like some of the filming, like the scenes that are shot in the film with the way Jason's lit and stuff are absolutely brilliant. But I think as a director of actors, I don't think he had that skill, unfortunately. So that lets this film down. Top reviews about the score. The score's okay. The Harriman and Fredini reused themes are pretty good, because they're good in the old ones. But Fred Mullins stuff. I mean, Tina's theme is probably okay, and I think he was the one who I think he's even said himself that's probably it. But the rest of it, he thinks is pile of garbage. But I think he was working on the series at the time, so they brought him over to the movie, which is what happened with the director of Aina, Rob Head, and he got brought in because he'd done the series. So fair enough. But yeah, just not a good Friday the 13th film. MPAA, if that had not been there and not had those problems where they had to cut things, I think it would bring the film up a level. And I believe they originally had a jump scare at the end where Jason jumps out and pulls a fisherman down. If that had been in there, it probably would have elevated him a little bit, but I still think 7 and 8 would have still been 7 and 8 on my ranking. And in at number 6, we have Friday the 13th, Part 5, A New Beginning. This one may have been the first Friday the 13th film that I saw. It was either this one or the first one, because I don't remember which order I watched them in, but I remember 5 and 6 were on the same... I don't think it was the same night, but I think it was like consecutive nights over here in the UK. And I remember going to school the day after and painting the chevrons on like I've made a paper mask basically, put the chevrons on, but I did blue chevrons here and a red one there, and I must have merged the masks in my mind somehow. I don't know how I did it, but then again, in part 5 there is the ghostly apparition of Jason, so maybe I merged it from the same movie. But anyway, this is in at number 6 because while it is down the weaker end, I still quite like it. It's not the worst Friday the 13th. It doesn't have the best characters. The problem with a lot of these films, and I believe the first 4 had very interesting characters. I think, well, maybe not in 3 so much, but we'll get to that. And 6 had great characters, but 5 was the first time you kind of got these throwaway characters, in my opinion, who aren't really that interesting and they're just there to die. A lot of them. But I think one of the worst things about part 5 is that it all is over a chocolate bar. Joey puts this chocolate bar down, Vic's chopping wood. Vic, who is clearly should not be, because this is like a halfway house, so this is kind of like you've been kind of in the institute, now you go into like the more relaxed institute, and then you get back into society. He should not have been there. Whoever wrote this script should have maybe had some moments that built up to this that made Vic lose it a little bit. But anyway, they weren't bothered. They were just trying to cash in and get our money basically. So Joey puts his chocolate bar in and Vic chops it in half, and then Joey gets annoyed at him and then he attacks Joey all over a chocolate bar. Now the worst thing is the Jason Imposter, right, is the killer. Doesn't bother me. I actually quite like it. What bothers me is the reveal of the killer. It ends up being Roy, the ambulance driver. It should have been Tommy, in my opinion. Or it should have maybe actually been Vic. You could have built it up a lot better. But Roy, the ambulance driver, who just happens to be the dad of this kid Joey, who I don't understand. It's almost like they've got no relationship, but later on he's got an adult picture of him. Very, very weird. But this whole reveal as well, like the way it's revealed at the end, where Roy's mask comes off and you see it's Roy. I couldn't even tell it was Roy. I didn't know who it was until you went to the next scene and the cop tells the lead girl, Pam, that it was Roy. Okay, right. So you did a terrible job filming that. Could you not have filmed a little bit closer and done something a bit... I don't know. Anyway, ridiculous. But that was a terrible, terrible, reveal in the film. But other than that, it's got cut and paste characters. You got like Effelin Jr., who are kind of hilarious, but still, they're not really interesting characters. Junior's death might be the best death in this film, with gets his head chopped off. It got cut by the MPAA, so you don't see a lot, but it's still decent enough, I don't need to see gratuitous gore. I can see a little bit. Like when I can't remember his name, the guy at the cafe, or whatever you call it, I don't know what you call it, but the diner. He gets an axe in the head. You don't quite see it, but that's still a good kill because of you hear the impact and you kind of see his face afterwards. That might be my favourite. I'm kind of torn on this one actually. But yeah, unfortunately, it got cut by the MPAA down, so the kills kind of got a bit neutered in this, but there's still some decent kills. A Man With No Life in His Eyes by Pseudo Echo is in this film. That's one of my favourite songs. It's such a cool song. And I know the girl who gets killed in that scene was supposed to get more graphic death, and I think it was going to be something a bit lower downstairs, and I'm kind of glad they didn't do it now. Maybe they could have done something better than what they did, but still. Reggie's a great character in this. Pam is entertaining. Tommy in this, I don't know. He's kind of a little bit like... He's a bit miserable. I mean, I understand it. He doesn't talk a lot. I think what they did... This does feel more like an evolution of Corey Feldman's Tommy in tone with the film than 6 does. But I think Tom Matthews' Tommy in 6 felt more like Corey in the way he acted. They're not the same, obviously, but Corey was a very like open kid and stuff. And I get he kills Jason at the end of part 4, and he goes, makes sense. But yeah, that was so that was aspects of the film that didn't quite work for me, and he kind of disappears for half the movie. Which, if you're gonna reveal he's the killer or he's kind of been set up by the killer, which they did kind of try and do in this, but they don't really go all the way with it. There's not really a moment where anyone suspects Tommy, or you have a moment where they go, maybe it's Tommy doing this. Just doesn't happen. So yeah, part 5, it's one of them. It's kind of a middle of the road Friday the 13th movie. I think when you watch the films back to back, I don't think it's as good if you watch it just on its own. So like one day if I just threw in 5, I'd enjoy it. But if I watch 1, 2, 3, 4, then watch 5, I kind of go, is that really what happened? But 5 does set you up for 6. And in number 5 is Friday the 13th Part 3, and I sort of have a love-hate relationship with this film. Like, I love aspects of it, and I think the final chase is brilliant, but the acting is just awful. And I think one of the reasons that I read was it was to do with the 3D effects, so everything was about the 3D effects, which, when you're watching 2D, it's noticeably jarring when they're just holding stuff in front of the camera like this, like, in your face, and it doesn't work as a 2D film. As a 3D film, I've not seen it in 3D. I've seen it in the red and green. It was rubbish, but maybe it does work better as a 3D film. I'm sure it does, to be honest. But things to do, like Richard Brooker is great as Jason, and it looks, this for me is the quintessential look of Jason. Like, if I was going to do a reboot today, I would make him look like this Jason. Maybe the pants and the shirt are a bit lighter coloured than I'd like, but probably got a bit dark coloured. If you actually played the game, the cover of the game, which is obviously Kane Hodder as that Jason, that would be what I would do in a reboot. I would make him look like that. I think it'd be absolutely perfect. Richard Brooker was great as Jason. There's a reason he's really loved, and it's the personality he brings to the character. So he's definitely one of the best aspects of this film. I'm trying to think what the lead actress, I forget her name now, who played Chris. She is really good. She's one of the best final girls. Not the best final girl for me, but she's up there with the. If you're having a conversation about the best one, she's definitely in it. Jason Unmasked doesn't look great. It looks okay. It looks more like Jason than it did in part 2, I suppose. If you go by the first look at the first movie. But there's some cool moments, like when he does come out on the dock with the hockey mask for the first time. That is an epic moment and brilliant. One of my favourite bits is where the stoner guy switches the light on and Jason's right behind him. And I love that shot, and it's something I would repeat in every Friday the 13th movie, I'll be honest. Just putting new spins on it. But other than that, it's kind of just a bit... And yeah, best kill's probably Rick, but again, in 2D, you can see the wire coming out the eye. But that's got to be the best kill. And Rick... In fact, I might as well talk about Rick while I'm here. What an a-hole, right? So he's not seen Chris for... How long? Like a couple of months, maybe. She's obviously not in a good place, and he's just talking about wanting to get laid, basically. Really, Rick? Really, Rick? So he's one of the worst characters. So when he died, I was like, yeah, get in. Good on you, Jason. If I was going to go, like, I haven't really talked about worst kills of the franchise, but there's some not so good kills in this, like when the guy in the shopkeeper gets killed. You can clearly see there's like I think he said it was a wood thing underneath. You can see it sticking out. It's like this, glaringly obvious in your face. That's pretty poor. The disco theme is entertaining but silly. Like, doesn't suit a Friday the 13th film. Other than that, the score's pretty good. It's Harry Manfredini. The jump scare at the end, though, we've got to talk about that. Doesn't make any sense. Jason does not get called Jason at all in this film. He does in the trailers, which one of the best trailers of all time. Like, these are Jason's woods. Love that line. But when Jason gets defeated, shall we say, at the end, which is a great moment, by the way, when the axe in the head. Absolutely brilliant. You know, Pamela Voorhees' body jumps out the water. With head on, jumps out the water, right, Chris? Now, this would have made a lot of sense in part 2. Part 3, no, because there's not one mention of Jason Voorhees, who he is. He's just literally there. He is literally like the shark in Jaws in some respects. Like, he has no... he just happens to be there. There's not any... Like, part 2, there's a lot of talk about Jason and Jason's mother, and it kind of ties back to the first one. This one, it's very, very standalone, and there's no mention of him being called Jason. There's no mention of the mother. Unless you watch the beginning, which recaps 2, but the characters in the film didn't see any of that. One of the other things that bugs about this film is that it's set days after the second one. Why did they not just jump ahead of you? Just jump ahead of you. Would it have harmed it in any way? In fact, I believe it was 82, right? It was part 3, or 83. So if you're going to do that later anyway, you could have done a 2-year jump if you wanted. Maybe it was 82, I can't remember. But yeah, so part 3, great final chase. In fact, a lot of the time I just put the final chase on to watch that. Great final chase. Some epic moments. Richard Brooker's great as Jason, but not the best, but better than what's below it. In at number 4, I have the original Friday the 13th. So this isn't even really a blasphemy in a Friday the 13th ranking, because I know a lot of people don't have this as number 1. I know some people who do, and I totally understand that. But for me, the films above this sort of recaptured what this did and did a better job of it. The problem with the first Friday the 13th, and I'll get the negatives out of the way, is it was almost amateur filmmaking in some respect. Like, they didn't really know. I won't say they didn't know. Sean Cunningham knew what he was doing in how to make films, but he'd never really made a horror film. And he had done Last House on the Left, hadn't he, with Wes Craven, but he hadn't really done like something like this. So I think it was a little bit out of his wheelhouse. I don't think it was his type of movie, if that makes sense. So, and I do think it does show a little bit in it. There's scenes where there's nothing happening. Like, I think it's Bill goes to check the power supply. He's gone for about 10 minutes, and you see like Adrian King, Alice making coffees. We see everything. We see her open the jar. We see her pulling out the sugar or the coffee, and you're just like, really? Did you really need to film all that? And I almost think it was a failed attempt at building some suspense and tension, which Halloween did so well, and we know Friday the 13th was a rip-off of Halloween. So I think there was some intent on kind of capturing that, but it just didn't quite work in that scene. There's some scenes where it does work and you get stuff perfect, but that one wasn't one of them. But overall, I absolutely love this movie. That was just some negatives. This is a good film. Kevin Bacon is probably the standout of the kids in the film, shall we say. Some of them are overacting. Like Adrian King, he's admittedly said herself, she overacted in it. But again, these were young actors. And I don't think there was, in any Friday the 13th, there was any direction from the, to the actors to be more like this or whatever. I think it was just basically like, A to B, you're going to get killed. You concentrate on your character. So unfortunately, as a kid, I didn't like this one that much, even though we used to watch it a lot of my friends. So I think I secretly did like it, but didn't. You wanted the hockey mask. You wanted Jason in the mask when you were a kid. That's all you care about when you're younger. It's the same with Halloween. All I cared about was Michael Myers in the mask. Freddy Krueger, you want to see Freddy Krueger. That's just how these franchises work. When you get older, I think you can start to respect direction and pace and all that sort of stuff a lot more than you can when you're younger. So this one has actually aged better than I think people give it credit for. Obviously, it's got its slow moments, its boring moments, but overall, I think it's paced quite well. Like I say, the characters are good. The best kill in this one, well, obviously you've got to go Pamela Voorhees with the, which obviously that's one of the film's problems actually for me, which we'll get to it. I'll get back to in a minute so Pamela Voorhees, remember that. The head chopping scene of Pamela Voorhees is like epic. It looks good today. Again, you can see the toothpicks, but who cares? But if I was gonna pick a kill by the killer, because I don't want to just pick that one because everyone picks that one. You've got to go Kevin Bacon with the that arrow through the neck. That looks phenomenal today. Obviously, you can tell the prosthetics a little bit because of Blu-ray. The high quality. It's kind of brightened up, so you can see that it's not quite the same color as his neck, but who cares? That's probably the best kill of the film. Outside of the killers kill. But yeah, the problem with this film for me is, well, it reveals Pamela Voorhees as the killer. They should have set it up better. Like, they should have had she should have been the cook in the diner at the beginning, and you could have had an ominous look, you know, and now they're opening that camp again. Would have been a lot better, and maybe you could have then had a scene a little bit later with her, but because she kind of comes out of nowhere, which I get the surprise was that it was this actress that everyone knew at the time. You know, we, as an older audience member, you don't have that like prehistory with Betsy Palmer. To me, Betsy Palmer is Pamela Voorhees, so fair enough. You know, it is what it is. He went for what he went for, but for me, that is the cheat of the film, where he really should have, you know, gone out, and she should have been in there at certain points to. But you obviously the red flags and, you know, the red herrings in the film are people like Ralph, so you could have still had that and maybe leaned into that a little bit more to try and make her out to be this innocent cook, but we know she isn't. Music's good, score's good. Harry Manfredini again. The scores from apart from 7 and 8 are all good in this franchise, in my opinion. You know, the Paramount era, so that's pretty good. Yeah, and obviously the jump scare at the end with Jason is probably the greatest jump scare in the history of jump scares, in my opinion. It may be rivaled by the Carrie one that he ripped off. Fair enough. I'd seen this first. I saw Carrie after, so I can't kind of follow that, you know, go with that. But for me, the greatest jump scare ever is this one, is the Jason jumping out late. And yeah, so that's why, you know, this is number 4. Number 3, Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason Lives. Now, this at one time was my number 1, but as I've got older, I've started to like the two above it more. It does take Jason into that kind of horror comedy in a respect. This is the one where I always say every franchise has got like the accessible one. Like, so I could show this to someone who's not a huge horror fan, but they'd still enjoy it. Yeah, if you like 80s movies, I think you'd enjoy Jason Lives because it's got the Alice Cooper rock songs. You know, Man Behind the Mask is great. You know, it's got Hard Rock Summer USA, Teenage Frankie. You know, all these catchy tunes that just kind of add to the 80s-ness of it. And I think, like, you know, in Nightmare on Elm Street, you've got like Dream Warriors, and then in Halloween you've got Halloween 4, and they're kind of the accessible ones where you could have a laugh watching it because they're not scary. The scariness is gone at that point, but you have fun with these characters. And, you know, CJ Graham as Jason in this is like, he plays it like the Terminator, where he's kind of like this non-stop machine just coming after, you know, in this case Tommy and Megan, whereas in Terminator it's Linda Hamilton. So that, you know, that he's great in this. The one aspect of this film that I think does suffer a little bit is the kills. It's not as gratuitous, and again, I said I don't need ultra gratuitous, but I need something. This film, the kills are very tame. Again, it don't bother me because it's such an entertaining film. It's kind of not going for that, but that's another reason I think it is the more accessible one, you know, to people. But kills in it, Sheriff Garris getting bent in half. That's a really good kill. He's bloodless, and you don't really need the blood on that, so that's why it works so well. Other than that, there's kind of like the decapitation scene. It's kind of cut to bits. You know, you can't really see it. It's too close in. There's a guy who gets thrown into the tree with a smiley face, which always makes me laugh. I'm trying to think what other kills there are, but I think for me the best kill is probably the Sheriff Garris bent in half, in my opinion anyway. Jason's arrival in this film, if you will, where he gets dug up. It's kind of interesting that Part 5 has a similar scene that opens. It's very interesting that they kind of went there again, but it works, and this is such a great scene. And, you know, resurrection by lightning bolt is just, it's Frankenstein's monster in it, which is what, you know, Tom McLaughlin was going for. So absolute brilliant opening to this film, and it's just got something. And I you know, we talk about teasers at the end of films, and this one doesn't have a jump scare ending, but it's got Jason under the water, and you see his fist clenching, his eye like opens, and the music hits the Alice Cooper music, and it works so well, so well. Yeah, so I think other than that, there's not really much else to say. Jason looks great in this, like I said, and I'm pretty satisfied with the way he's finished up. This is really the end of the franchise, but I'm going to fit an end. And in at number 2, we have Friday the 13th, the final chapter, aka Part 4, even though it doesn't say it in the title, but it's the 4th installment. I remember the first time I saw this, I didn't see this until very late. I was I'd not started really collecting horror movies until I was a teenager. I'd kind of had my early years watching them and enjoying certain ones and not enjoying certain ones, and later enjoying those ones, weirdly. But when I actually set out to buy the Friday the 13th movies, when I was about 15, 16, the first one I got was the final chapter, and it was because of the case with the hockey mask with the knife through it. It was just such an awesome case. I was like, I just want to own that film based on that. I remember watching it with my friend, and I'd never seen it before. It was one of the ones I'd not seen. I just loved it. I think this film is the one that's got the characters in this feel really real. Obviously, everyone talks about Crispin Glover in this, and he's great in this. You know, the dance moves. You know, the that he does. To Lions Love Is a Lie. Great scene. But yeah, you like the characters, and you do feel kind of bad when they die in this. Whereas in some of the other ones, you want characters to die. Whereas in this one, I felt like, oh no, you know, he's dead, she's dead. You know, obviously there's the odd character you want to die. You know, one of the twins is not very nice to to everyone, but it's just got something the others don't. It's a very dark film as well, and I think this is one where Jason's quite scary, and the way Ted White played it. You know, because I'd never seen Jason run until I watched this film, and I was like, oh my god, he's running, you know. And Kane Hodder always talked about how Jason should never run, and I kind of had that attitude at the time. But then I'm like, well, this was before you even played him, so this guy's probably got more of a say than you do anyway, because he played it before you did. And then, you know, when we get to my number one, he runs in that film as well, so... but yeah, it's just got something really like dark and gothic to it, and... You know, Corey Feldman, who is an actor I was a big fan of, you know, as a kid, like, you know, The Goonies, you know, License to Drive, The Lost Boys, you know, seeing him in this is kind of like, straight away I sort of had that actor where I was like, oh, he's kind of brought me in now, you know, he's there in it, you know, I quite like him. But no, just brilliant, and the way they hang on, you know, Jason's resurrection, because in part 3 at the end, axe chop to the head, collapses in the barn, he's done. Even though we know now an axe chop to the head is not going to kill one of these killers. They're always going to come back. Unless you categorically cut the head off. Unless, well, sometimes they find ways out of that, don't they? But yeah, the way he comes back, you know, in the coroner's office with Axel, who is a great character. You do want him to die, but you love him at the same time. He's just a horrible human being. Then he puts his food on top of Jason when Jason's underneath the sheet. And obviously we know about the scene with his girlfriend and stuff like that. So, but no, just a very, very, very good film. I don't have a lot of negatives to say about this. Maybe there's a little bit of some little slow parts here and there very early on, but nothing to gripe on about. Kills in this one, they're all very, very quick, like quick cuts. And I believe Tom Savini said, because when Jason died at the end, which Jason's death is the best kill of the film, no danger. You know, he gets a machete to the head and he slides down a machete. It's glorious. You know, Tom Savini said that the other kills being cut actually helped that kill because they allow. I don't know why they allowed that kill. Maybe it's because it was the killer getting killed. I don't know. But the way that the other kills are so quick, it kind of made you think, oh, well, it's very quick, I can get over it fast. But then when you get to Jason's, it's very long and elaborate and you have to sit and watch it. As for the kills Jason does, it's hard to think in. Is, you know, the girl on the side of the road, banana through the neck. Gross, because I hate seeing food dribbling and stuff, but what a great kill. Crispin Glover with the meat cleaver and where's the corkscrew in the hand? That's probably it for me, actually. Yeah, it's probably the corkscrew and the meat cleaver to the face, so I'll probably go with that one. But yeah, overall, great film. Highly recommend it. It's one of them that I think Jason Lives is the accessible one, but if you know someone who's into dark, scary horror, this is the one I'd pick. So right, this is the one you should watch because this one is quite scary and it's got its moments. So, and Trish is a great final girl. I'll just say that right now. You know, her and Corey teaming. It's a shame she won in 5. I think she would have elevated 5 a bit more, but I believe that wanted to move on with the Tommy character. So fair enough. And number 1. Friday the 13th, Part 2. Old Baghead. Now, it's funny because when I watched the films as a teenager, like, this was one of the last ones I saw, and I liked it, but I was like, I wish he were wearing the hockey mask in it. And I think I was at that, when you're a teenager, I think the things you look for in these films are not the same things you care about when you're older. So like now, I don't care that he doesn't wear the hockey mask in too. And in fact, the reboot, the sack was scarier than than the hockey mask. Not so much in this because it looks like a big white pillowcase, but it just doesn't bother me. And I think it would have been nice to have had him in a hockey mask sooner, but couldn't have what we didn't know then, because he didn't get the hockey mask till the film after. So it is what it is. But Jason's greatness. There's been some debate about who played him. Like, was it Steve Dash? Was it Warrington Gillette? We know they both did scenes. Now, for me, I would just be like, look, just embrace both actors. Like, Warrington Gillette did the jump scare at the end, which is one of the, it's not quite the same effect as the jump scare in the first one, but it's still a very good jump scare. So he did that, and I think he killed Ralph, and there might have been one or two other scenes, but Steve Dash did most of it. Like, all the scenes with Ginny at the end, that's Steve Dash. Absolute brilliant chase scene at the end. I think the best of the series, chase scene wise, by a mile, to be honest. And that's not a knock on other chase scenes. There's great chase scenes in Final Chapter. Like I said, Part 3, the first one, but this is another level. And what works so well about 2 is it takes all the things 1 did right and does it again, but in a better way, and it doesn't do any of the wrong things. There's not a moment in this film where I'm bored. I really like the characters. The kills are brilliant in this. Obviously, they were cut. I've seen the uncut kills, and you know what? I prefer them cut because I think sometimes the imagination is better than what you can see on screen anyway. And I think all those years of not seeing the kills, I've just got used to not seeing them to the point where I'm like, well, now they're not as good as what I had in my head. So I'd rather just have it as it is. So if they ever did an uncut part 2, would I own it? Yes, I would. Would I watch it on repeat? I'm not sure I would. I think I'd probably just stick with the theatrical because I like the way the kills were cut. So, but yeah, we talk about final girls. Ginny is the best final girl of the entire series. She is the only one for me who can rival Laurie in Halloween. And she's not on that level because Laurie in Halloween is on another level. If Ginny had done a part 3, they asked Dame Steele to do, that could be a different story. But she didn't. She did the one film. But of all the final girls in the Friday films, she's the best. And for me, if I was making a Friday the 13th today, I would look at what she did. I'm not saying copy it, but look how she portrayed her character and get a character that's write a character that's like that. She's strong. She's got, you have to think about Ginny as well. She ain't even though she is the damsel in distress at some point, she's not. She fights tooth and nail with Jason. She doesn't take any crap. She gives as good as she gets. There's obviously the scene, did she pee? Did a rat pee? Bit weird. I believe it's been definitively said that Ginny peed, but who knows? Anyway, not important. And the psychology aspect to her, where she used, which is set up brilliantly in the bar scene when they're kind of theorising if Jason did survive. And that's not to say that is how he survived, but that's to give you a thought of how he may have survived. He drowned. He came ashore. He didn't know where he was. He got stuck in the woods. Finally saw his mother on the night she got beheaded. Oh no, she's dead. And then he at that point, obviously he was older. He came back as the killer. Although, to be fair to Jason doesn't actually bother the people in this film. He goes after Alice at the beginning because he wants revenge for the first, what she did to his mother. I totally get that. Again, you're not going to root for the bad guy, but I totally get that. I assume that was somewhere near Crystal Lake. It has to have been. But, so Jason kind of gets to that state, and then Jason stays out of the way. What happens is 2 of the characters, Sandra and Jeff, going into his domain is what disturbs him, and he's like, you've come into my domain now, so I'm coming after you. Sets up brilliantly. There's some great moments in the film. The best kill, it's toss-up for me. A lot of people will say machete in the face and falling, the guy in the wheelchair going down the stairs. I love that kill, and I think it's great, but I think I like the spear as well. Like the spear with a couple having sex, and I've seen the uncut version, like I said, and I think the cut version works just as fine. I don't think you need to see the spear going. I think just seeing that, and then it comes through the bed with the blood on, is enough. A lot of people will disagree with me, and that's fine. But yeah, so I think it's between those 2. It is hard for me to choose. But I'm going to go for the spear just because everyone picks the other one. So I'm just going to put the spear. But yeah, great film, great Jason, and for me, this is the one. Like, if you said to me you can only keep one of this franchise, I would keep part 2. So there you have it. So there it is, folks. That's my ranking of the Friday the 13th films. What are your rankings? Leave them down below in the comments. And, if you think I'm wrong for my rankings, that's fine, But everyone has their own opinions and their own tastes. And, you don't have to come after me and say, blah, 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 you're a piece of crap, whatever. I know people who adore Part 7, and I think it's one of the worst ones. That's ace. I love that. I love it. We all have different opinions and we all enjoy. So, yeah, as I said before, you can find me on Twitter at /Vidcast. You can follow me on Twitter at my personal Twitter at SteveBomb1984. If you want to talk horror, it's probably best at /Vidcast, but I'll still talk horror with you at my other one. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next one. And remember, watch out at the lakes for the man behind the mask.